NAACP President Derek Johnson is asking black student athletes in high school and college to reconsider attending colleges in the state of Florida. Johnson's request is in response to a decision by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to eliminate funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at all state-funded colleges in Florida. On March 1st, the University of Florida ended its DEI program, which eliminated jobs of 15 people at the university. Johnson also sent a letter Monday to NCAA President Charlie Baker expressing his concerns. Johnson hopes his message reaches a lot of black student athletes, especially high school athletes who are being recruited by the University of Florida and other Florida schools. If black student athletes and their parents embrace Johnson's message, athletic programs in Florida will face some very tough consequences. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Climate is king.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do 4 things. Increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice.
We want cleaner air.
Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough. 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 If we care enough.
1, 2, 3, go! Ha ha! I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com, that's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, 2 conversations. Up first,
I think it's safe to say that the initial investigation was frustrating for everyone. But Reggie's frustration was different. It was so public. He was one of the most famous people in the country, and we could all watch him on our televisions.
Yeah, I'm telling you though, I'm not happy about this game. I'm not happy because I get official to tell me that I'm lying too much.
If this was my dad, I think I know what he'd be feeling, but I'm not sure what he would do. What Reggie did was go on the offensive. He publicly asked other black celebrities to join in solidarity.
I'm calling to the forefront my counterparts, athletes And I'm also calling entertainers, the Oprah Winfrey's. I'm calling in my field the Michael Jordans and the Emmitt Smiths. Our communities are being terrorized, and we have to do something about it.
NFL Films producer Cortland Bragg investigates the mysterious 1996 burning of NFL great Reggie White's church in Knoxville, Tennessee, in his latest 30 for 30 podcast special. It's called Through the Flames. Reggie's church will do that with Cortland at the top of hour 2, and then we'll catch up with DNC chair Jamie Harrison to get his take on the road ahead for Joe Biden and the Democrats. In our third hour,
I'm a widow from the South Side.
Who said that? Who said what?
My old man left me with 6 kids. The heat's been off a week, and they all got the flu. What are you gonna do about that?
Who said that? Will the lady who said that please step? I can't see who said that. Please let the lady who said that step forward, please.
Mr. Walker, when you're elected, what are you gonna do to help
Do you want me to help you with your landlord, lady?
Hell no! I want you to get me my old man back!
Oh, madam, if you really want your old man back, are you prepared to stand by him when the going's getting rough?
Yes!
Madam, would you be willing to put your imagination to work on behalf of the cause he's fighting for?
Yes!
Madam, would you love and cherish him for the rest of your life?
Yes!
Madam,
Yes!
if you're willing to do all that, I guarantee you, I'll get you your old man back.
Then, mister, you got my vote.
it does something to me every time I hear it. Every time I see it, and I've seen it more times than I can count. We are honored today in our third hour to be joined by film legend Billy D. Williams to discuss his memoir, What Have We Here? Look forward to Billy D. hanging out with us today in our third hour. But we commence today's show with Keith Boykin and his latest book, Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Won't Go Away. Keith Boykin, good to hear your voice again, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Tavis. Can you hear me?
I hear you well, man. You hear me okay?
I do.
That works. I mean, because if that was... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I love that scene from Mahogany. I just watched that just last week, actually. So it's so funny that you have that on there. And
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so when I heard that, I was like, "That's Mahogany. He's actually playing Mahogany." I love that. So yeah, it's great.
So tell me, let's play for at least for a minute or so before we get started on our conversation about your book. Let's just play Film Critic. When you see Mahogany, you saw it last time, obviously not for the first time. What resonates with you about that film? What do you love about Mahogany?
I love the relationship between Diana Ross and Billy D. Williams. I love the show of the display of black love. I love the ups and downs and the difficulties and the struggles and the fact that we have resilience and we're able to conquer after all that we have to go through. Yeah.
Now there are a handful of films that I think. That have at the epicenter of them a notion of black love. Not enough films do. But on my top 5 list, Mahogany's definitely top 5. You got to put Love Jones top 5. You got to put Claudine Claudine goes top 5. I could do this all day if I had the time, but just to lay out my top 10 films that have black love at the epicenter of them. But Mahogany is hard. You do much better than that. We look forward to Billy D. Williams today in our third hour. When we come forward, though, we'll jump right into this conversation with Keith Boykin about his new book. It's a provocative one called Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Just Won't Go Away. We'll talk to Keith for the hour when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/Black Beyond Measure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze fruit-on-the-go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
So you just used bug spray in your home. Now what? Well, between the waiting for things to dry up and keeping your family away from the mess, it hits you. You could have used Zevo. Unlike other bug sprays that stick around, Zevo goes from kill to clean in seconds. Plus, it's safe for use around people and pets when used as directed. Zevo, people-friendly, bug-deadly.
I'm going out with the girls this weekend. Nails done, outfit stunner, and my skin, I know it's gonna be glowing because I glammed up my shower routine with new Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash. It smells so luxurious and moisturizes deep into my skin with its super rich, creamy lather that's bursting with vitamin B3. So my skin glows and my confidence grows. Try new Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash for glowing skin in just 14 days.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Keith Boykin, who has written a new book, another one. He is a New York Times bestselling author, and he's done it again with Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Won't Go Away. Keith, let me start with this. What does it say about the state of this experiment in democracy that in 2024, with all that we have endured, with all that we've accomplished, so much left still to do, but we've bypassed the first black vice president. We've bypassed the first black president. There's a black woman on the Supreme Court. I can do this all day long. You take my point. What does it say about this particular moment in late modernity that one feels the need to have to write a book called Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Won't Go Away.
It says that we have a lot of work to do, Tavis.
Yeah.
These issues don't go away just because you elect a black elected official. It's more important than just a black president, a black vice president, a black Supreme Court justice. We're talking about structural change. We're talking about systemic change. And that doesn't happen from changing the personnel. It changes from actually changing the policies. And one of the things I talk about a lot is that we have policies in place in this country that have been here since the beginning of the country that were designed to exclude us. So even if we work within the system, there's only so far we can go until we figure out a way to completely dismantle the existing system and create a better system that suits us in a more democratic fashion. Remember, we weren't supposed to be included from the beginning. The Constitution that they ratified in 1788 didn't include black people. It said that black people who were enslaved were 3/5 of a citizen, 3/5 of a citizen, 3/5 of a person, weren't even a citizen at all. When we had the Dred Scott decision in 1857, it said that black people weren't citizens at all. We had to fight a civil war for 4 years just to get the 14th Amendment to allow us to be considered citizens. And then we still were considered citizens because we had to go through the whole Plessy versus Ferguson era from 1896 into 1954, where we were second-class citizens, separate but equal, according to the U.S. Supreme Court. And then even after the 1954 Supreme Court decision, 10 years later, it takes us before we finally get the Civil Rights Act, which gives us equal access to accommodations, and a whole nother year before we get the Voting Rights Act in 1965, which gives us access to democracy. So for us as Americans, as black Americans, it tells us that you can't erase hundreds of years of history with the election of one president or one vice president or the appointment of one Supreme Court justice. That's going to take hundreds of years of work.
Yeah, I don't mean to be so pessimistic at the onset of this conversation, but I'm listening to what you just said now, Keith, and I had a conversation yesterday, which I'll get back to in a moment. This is an interesting juxtaposition between where I started my show in the first hour yesterday and where we are today. Put a pin in that for the moment. But as I hear you explain what you just laid out, that you tackle so nicely and so beautifully in the text, it makes me wonder whether or not a country that is rooted in racism, this isn't just an issue, it's at the core, it's at the root, a country that's rooted in racism. I don't know that it's ever possible, to use your word, to dismantle what is structural and what is systemic. If it's in the roots, I'm not so sure you can dismantle it, Keith.
Well, I'm not here to disagree with you. I think there's individual racism, there's systemic racism. What we have in our country is systemic racism. Mm-hmm. It's a part of the DNA of our country. It is a feature, not a bug. That's the way it was created from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I actually start the book with a different date from what people are used to. I started the book from 1526.
That's right.
Not 1619. I use the 1526 point because that's the date when black people who were in this country as enslaved people took up arms in the rebellion against their enslavers in South Carolina. But they were enslaved under the Spanish. So we kind of forget that whole history, that 90 years before the British brought the first enslaved people to Virginia in 1619. We forget that whole history, but black people were here for another 100 years before 1619. And we were fighting for our freedom in rebellions even then. So this whole thing about this is a relatively new phenomenon. American racism is a part of who we are. It's a core of our identity. I've been saying recently, I know it's kind of controversial for some people, but I think that we need to redo the entire Constitution, first of all. I think we have a Constitution that is completely unfair to not only to black people, but to democracy itself. It was never designed to include most people. I think we need to abolish the Electoral College, first of all. The idea that we have a president of the United States who isn't elected by the people is preposterous in 2024, but that's the system that the framers designed. And we've had now, in my lifetime, 2 elections where the person who won the popular vote didn't become the presidency. That's the first thing. Second, we need to abolish the United States Senate. We live here in the state of California where we have 39 million people and we only have 2 U.S. senators. And we're a diverse state with black and brown people and people from all different backgrounds and a very progressive state, relatively speaking. And then you have this tiny state of Wyoming, which only has 600,000 people. And they have the same two U.S. senators. And you have a whole bunch of these little tiny states in the mountain range who have disproportionate influence, these tiny rural white states who have disproportionate influence on our country because they're able to cast 2 votes in the United States Senate to cancel out the tens of millions of people who live in the state of California. That's problematic. Yeah. Third, we need to eliminate gerrymandering in the House of Representatives. That's important, so we don't have this system where people don't feel like they have to represent their constituents. They're just representing a tiny fraction of people who are part of their core white base. Yeah. And fourth, we need to abolish the lifetime tenure of not only Supreme Court justices but federal judges, and we need to have term limits for members of the judiciary. So those are 4 simple, not simple, but there's important things that we could do that would change our system dramatically and create a more democratic system that better reflects the values of a country that is increasingly not white.
I'm glad you caught yourself, because ain't nothing simple about that. That agenda.
It's simple at all.
No, it's just 4 things. Ain't nothing easy to do on that list. I digress on that for now. Let me, to your point of starting your book with a date that we typically don't start with. We tend to start with 1619. Some don't want to start until 1776. But I love that you went. I love that you went back 100 years prior, 90 years, almost 100 years prior. So since you did something a little uniquely different, let me ask a question that is a bit uniquely different. And I this may get me brought up on charges of tyranny or treason for even asking this question on national radio, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Given what you've just laid out, the conversation, before we get back more deeply into your text, the conversation we have in this country more often than not is about how amazing the 4 founders were. Never mind that these founding documents, as you made clear earlier, these founding documents were clearly pro-slavery documents. No question about that. They were pro-slavery documents at their writing, and we were not considered full citizens in this country. No question about that. But the conversation always revolves around what an amazing job these founders did in the writing of these documents that we still live under and with, these living documents all these years later. Let me flip the frame if I can. Given what you've just said, what do you make of the fact that in so many ways, Lord help me, the founders got it so wrong? Not so right, but so wrong, Keith.
Well, it depends on who you're talking about. I mean, they got it right for themselves. They created a system to perpetuate white supremacy, and they have perpetuated patriarchal white supremacy for hundreds of years, which is the reason why, even though they are no longer in the position where they are clinging to power and will be able to cling to power permanently because of the changing demographics of the country, they still have systems that will keep them in power long after they're no longer a majority. The Census Bureau came out a few years ago and said that white people will no longer be the majority of the population by the year 2044. And white people started freaking out about this. It's around the same time when Donald Trump runs for president, after Barack Obama is elected. And they get all upset about this, and they start creating the Tea Party and start doing everything they can to re-promote white supremacy. But the truth is that they knew from the beginning the systems made it hard for black people or brown people or indigenous people or any group of people to challenge that white supremacy, because they created the structural impediments to prevent people from changing it. That's the reason why it's so hard to amend the Constitution. That's the reason why it's so hard to pass legislation, because we have a bicameral legislature that makes it difficult to get things through the U.S. Senate, which has a check on the more democratic House of Representatives, because you have these underrepresented groups of people from white states. That's the reason why they want to exalt the system as though the system can do no wrong. But the system was hypocritical from the beginning. When Thomas Jefferson wrote those words that all men are created equal in 1776 in the Declaration of Independence, 41 of the 56 people who signed that document, including Jefferson, enslaved black people. What does that say about the hypocrisy? They knew from the beginning. How can you say that all men are created equal while the majority of the people who were signatories to that document were enslaving other men, other black people?
No, that's why I asked the question, and it's a conversation that we don't have in this country about not what the founders did so right, but how they got it so wrong in retrospect. And to Key's point, at least the 4 things that you'd have to do to rectify what they did, none of those things are easy, and it is written into law how difficult it is to do all of that. And so I digress on that particular point. So much of
not only that too, Tavis, but in terms of the U.S. Senate, it's not just a question of you can't just change the U.S. Senate to I suggest abolishing it. The reason why I suggest that is because you can't change the U.S. Senate to reduce the number of senators for any particular state. The Constitution sets up a clear procedure to amend the Constitution. But the one thing you cannot change, it says explicitly in the Constitution, the one thing you cannot change is you cannot reduce the number of senators for any state without that state's consent. And of course, no state is going to consent to reduce their own senators. Yeah. So you have this system that will exist in perpetuity unless we either abolish the Senate or start over and create a whole new system of government.
Yeah. Let me swing real far, real wide then, and ask to your point about the fact that we are inexorably headed toward that day when there will be more people of color in this country than there will be good white folk. Can you imagine anywhere in the future of this country that this system, as currently structured, systematically, will in fact be dismantled? Can you imagine that in your wildest dreams down the road?
I don't think I can imagine it in my lifetime, but I can imagine a set of circumstances that would enable this to happen. First of all, let me go back and say this. I never imagined we would have a black president in my lifetime. So that's kind of something that shows that anything is possible, I suppose. But that didn't happen because of white people. I mean, the majority of white people voted against Barack Obama in both of his elections. I mean, some white people voted for him, but it happened because of black and brown people and that coalition that started to change. We had a period. I worked for Bill Clinton when he ran for president in 1992, but we had a period before Bill Clinton came in office where Democrats had lost the popular vote in 5 of the 6 previous presidential elections. That's why Bill Clinton came in. He was so conservative on so many issues because he was trying to thread that needle. But since that time, as the demographics have shifted over the course of the past 3 decades, Democrats have actually won the popular vote in 7 of the last 8 presidential elections. So we start to see this change in narrative and changing demographic perspective. And that's the reason why they're fighting so fiercely to make sure that they don't lose hold of power. So I don't see that anything's going to happen without some sort of huge apocalyptic or cataclysmic moment. Frederick Douglass said that power conceives nothing without a demand. And if there is no struggle, there is no progress. I could anticipate only, in my mind, something horrific happening, some sort of dramatic moment that would force the country to start over and to redo where we left off, where we began, because it becomes untenable to sustain it. Yeah. And maybe Trump will be the person to usher that in. If God forbid Trump becomes president, we end up with an apocalyptic authoritarian dictatorship that he's promoting. Maybe we'll have that moment where we'll have a crisis and we'll have some sort of, I'm not promoting it or asking for it, but America seems to only change when there is some sort of dramatic moment. It happened during Civil War. It happened during the Civil Rights Movement. It only changes when there's some sort of dramatic, cataclysmic, or almost cataclysmic moment that forces us to come to terms with it. My former law professor, Derek Bell, used to call it interest convergence theory, that white people will only do the right thing when it converges with their interest. And I think that's what's likely to happen in the future.
Well, you and I are both students of history, and my read of history suggests to me that there is no empire in the history of the world, literally, that did not at some point have its comeuppance. Every empire has a reckoning at some point, and the data is incontrovertible in this regard. Our country is so fragile right now. We're on the precipice in so many ways, and to your earlier point, whether it's gerrymandering or poverty, we could run the list all day long. There's so many things in real time that are threats to this democracy, as I prefer to call it, that experiment in democracy. Why do I say that? Because we have a Madisonian framework for democracy, but we ain't nowhere near it yet. So I call it an experiment in democracy, and so there's so many things that threaten that democracy, that experiment in, that you may be right, that cataclysmic moment, again, because every empire at some point has its reckoning. And we get so caught up in this notion of American exceptionalism that we are all that and then some. I think we lose sight of the fact that it could happen to us. And again, the evidence abounds that the fragility of this democracy is something that we need to wrestle with. When we come forward, let me just tease this and frame this now. So Keith's book is called "Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Won't Go Away." He's a perennial New York Times best-selling author, and this one is doing quite well also. And I'm delighted to have him on to talk about it. But the book fight backs against misinformation and ignorance, and he makes the argument that these toxic racial pushbacks, these toxic racial arguments that we hear all the time about race, share one of 5 traits. When we come forward, we'll let him unpack each of those 5 traits. They are that they try, 1, to erase black history; 2, they prioritize white victimhood; 3, they deny black oppression; 4, they promote myths of black inferiority; or 5, they rebrand racism as something else entirely different. Those are the 5 frames, the 5 traits, if you will, that seem to, or 5 threads, for that matter, that run through these toxic racial arguments. Hence the book, "Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Just Won't Go Away." We'll talk about those 5 issues when we come forward with Keith Boykin on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
We're glad you could join us on this Tuesday, March 12th. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Voters in 4 states will take part in presidential primaries today, heading to the polls in Georgia, Hawaii, Mississippi, and Washington state. This as both President Biden and former President Donald Trump are just about guaranteed assured to win their party's nominations. Trump is expected to clinch the nomination when voting is done, Biden probably by next week. The Fire Department of New York is investigating who heckled New York Attorney General Letitia James at a graduation ceremony last week. The booing was loud and prompted the African-American Attorney General to say, "Come on, we're in a house of God." The heckling sounded well orchestrated rather than spontaneous, with Trump chants interrupting James's remarks. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Can't wait weeks for your tax refund? Then don't. At Jackson Hewitt, get money today if you're approved for a no-fee refund advance loan on a prepaid card. Book today at jacksonhewitt.com. No-fee refund advance offered to eligible clients. Application required. Loans by Republic Bank. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Is this the title? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
NAACP President Derek Johnson is asking black student athletes in high school and college to reconsider attending colleges in the state of Florida. Johnson's request is in response to a decision by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to eliminate funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at all state-funded colleges in Florida. On March 1st, the University of Florida ended its DEI program, which eliminated jobs of 15 people at the university. Johnson also sent a letter Monday to NCAA President Charlie Baker expressing his concerns. Johnson hopes his message reaches a lot of black student athletes, especially high school athletes who are being recruited by the University of Florida and other Florida schools. If black student athletes and their parents embrace Johnson's message, athletic programs in Florida will face some very tough consequences. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. If you say you care about the community, you have to also care about the climate. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate, not one based on anyone else. So if you drive safely, you could save money. Good to know. Visit allstate.com or call for a quote today.
If you're looking for the most epic place on Earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
Imagine with me here for a minute the most beautiful panoramic setting.
Maybe it's an endless ocean, waves crashing on a beach, or a crystal clear mountain lake, peaceful and quiet. Or maybe it's just little kids playing in the park down the street. Wherever your imagination takes you, now imagine right smack in the middle of this perfect picture, a piece of litter. Just one piece right there in the middle of it all. Doesn't exactly fit, does it? In fact, even though it's just one piece, now it's all you can see. That one piece ruins everything. And that's the thing about litter. It doesn't take much to ruin everything. One thing's for sure, it simply does not belong anywhere in California. So here's the good news. If we work together, we will change it. We don't have to let litter, even just one piece, ruin your perfect picture. Not anymore, not ever again. Clean California, zero litter is the goal. Brought to you by Caltrans and CleanCA.com.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Congratulations to Lenny Kravitz, who is today getting his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. This program, of course, is heard across the country. I'm delighted to have welcomed new stations yesterday in D.C., WOL, 1450 a.m. In New York City, WHCR, and where else? Des Moines, Iowa. So a lot of new cities commenced broadcasting this program yesterday. I'm delighted to have all of you, but I'm based in L.A., and here in L.A. today, Lenny Kravitz getting his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Congratulations, Lenny. When you get a star on the Walk of Fame, there are two persons who get to speak on your behalf. I am honored to have gotten one of those about 10 years ago, and my speakers were Jay Leno and Larry King, one of the great days of my life, to have Jay Leno and Larry King speak at my star celebration. And today, Lenny Kravitz has chosen his daughter Zoe and some guy named Denzel Washington. Those are the two speakers at Lenny's unveiling today. So congratulations to Lenny Kravitz getting his star today on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I'm Tavis Smiley. Our guest in this hour is Keith Boykin, and I'm glad to have you tuned in. We're talking about Keith's new book, Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 arguments that won't go away. These arguments that just won't go away tend to share 5 traits. They are that they try to erase black history, they prioritize white victimhood, they deny black oppression, they promote myths of black inferiority, or they rebrand racism as something else entirely. Or one could say they try to do all of the above. But let me just give Keith a moment here. I want to take them literally one at a time, Keith. Let's just do top line for me, each of these 5 traits, and then I want to jump more expressly into the book and pick out 2 or 3 of these arguments that just won't go away. But first, give me the backstory on these 5 traits. 1, they try to erase black history.
Well, Tavis, it's so funny that you say this because I am listening to this broadcast at the same time I'm talking to you, and even though I'm here to talk about politics and race, all your cultural references are drawing me in today. Your pop culture references, because you just mentioned Lenny Kravitz getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And I live in Hollywood. I didn't know this was happening until you just announced it. So I just looked it up. I'm going to be walking over there at 11:30 to go watch that. I'm so excited to know that.
Yeah.
And I walk by your star all the time on Hollywood Boulevard.
Wow.
His is going to be on Vine Boulevard. You got better location than he did.
Hey, all I know is this: the day that they unveiled my star, I was obviously blown away by the fact that I received a star on the Walk of Fame. That's a big deal in anybody's career. But what really got me was, Jay Leno was there, Larry King was there. That was cool. But what got me was when I looked at who was right next to me, and since you walk on me all the time, Keith, walking to your point, everybody walks on me. Right next to me, or I should say I am next to her, Lena Horne. And that's all I need to see. My star is right next to Lena Horne. That's all I got to know. I digress. You keep on going, Keith Boykin.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just trying to plan out my whole day now so I can go see Lenny Kravitz. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Informative day.
I am here to serve. I am here to serve. I am here to serve, Keith Morgan.
Yeah. Let's go talk about these five.
Yeah, they try to erase Black history. Take that first one.
Well, yeah, erasing Black history. This is a critical one because this is the thing I think we're dealing with the most right now. And we see it with Ron DeSantis with the AP African American history courses in Florida. We see it with the book bans that are going on. They're banning Black books or anything that's Toni Morrison, anything that's controversial, talks about race and racism. We see it when you have people who are out there trying to ban critical race theory, or they're trying to change what actually happened in the Civil War. Nikki Haley saying, "Oh, the Civil War wasn't about slavery," or Ron DeSantis saying that slavery wasn't so bad because people could actually benefit by becoming blacksmiths or something like that in their lives. It's a reflection of how they are doing this, and the reason why this is so evil, I think, Tavis, is because they want to erase the history so that we, as Black people, start to think that all the problems that we face as Black people are of our own creation, that we are to blame, that we are responsible for all the bad things going on in our community, without remembering all that they did to destroy and disrupt our communities, our families, and our neighborhoods. That's the tragic part of it. So then they want us to think that we can accomplish our individual, even though when we do accomplish our individual success stories, they want to think that it had nothing to do with the people who came before us, who laid the foundation for us to get there. So that we, even when we become successful, start to think that our history isn't important, and then we want to contribute to participate in that process of erasing our history. I remember Kanye West was just saying a few years ago, he said that he didn't think that people like Harriet Tubman were relevant anymore, that was ancient history, and we have to fight against that mentality that says that we did it all on our own, and we don't owe our ancestors a great deal of debt for the work that they did to pave the ground for us to get here.
And of course,
that's just the first one.
No, we praying for Kanye. I just saw Kanye about 2 weeks ago. We praying for that brother always. I'll just leave that where it is. The second of these 5 traits is that they prioritize, if I can say it, white victimhood.
Yeah, this is what Donald Trump specializes in. You know, everything he does is about white victimhood. The reason why he attacked Barack Obama's birth certificate, the reason why he's talking about this whole sort of replacement theory, the reason why he talks about immigration the way he does, the reason why he talks about Muslims, or anything he talks about, it's all about projecting the image that white people are the victims. And now, since he has 4 indictments and 91 criminal charges against him, he's using himself as a representative vessel to show that any attack on him is an attack on white people. So he is the ultimate white victim, and he wants all of his white followers, who are overwhelmingly white, but not all white, all of his white followers to see themselves in his eyes, even though he's a billionaire living in a gold-plated penthouse in Manhattan and a home in Mar-a-Lago and Palm Beach. He wants them to see himself as the epitome of white victimhood.
The most toxic racial arguments share one of 5 traits. The first, they try to erase Black history. Second, they prioritize white victimhood. Third, Keith Borkin, they deny Black oppression.
Yeah, this is a troubling one, because this is something that has been going on for a long time, that they try to pretend that we're really not suffering that much. It's okay that the Black unemployment is always twice as high, typically twice as high as white unemployment. It's okay that we have more health disparities. It's okay that we are more likely to be stopped by police and 3 times more likely to be arrested if we are stopped by the police. Now, all those things are just happening, but it's in our imagination that they are actually a form of oppression, that if we just comply with the police and we follow the rules and all those things, then we'll be fine. This is a denial of Black oppression, because it's an attempt to not just to erase their own history, but also to, because these things are all interconnected, but also to excuse themselves of any responsibility to solve that oppression.
Mm-hmm. Fourth, they promote myths of Black inferiority.
Ooh, this is a dangerous one. I talk about several examples of this. You know, this whole myth that there are all these Black people on welfare, that Black people need to just stop committing crime, that the Black families are broken, that Black fathers aren't present in our lives, that Black cities are struggling. All of these are racist myths that are created to perpetuate an ideology about Blackness, that Black people can't handle our own business without the help of white people coming in to save us. And so they get many of us, unfortunately, a lot of Black conservatives promoting the same idea that, you know, everything that's wrong with the Black community is because of Black people, as opposed to all the other influences, the outside influences that help to construct this problem. One of the best examples, obviously, is this idea about welfare. I don't understand how anybody could possibly think there are more black people on welfare than there are white people on welfare when there are clearly more white people in the country. We're only 13.6% of the population. It's just simple mathematics. How could you possibly think we're the majority of the people on welfare? Or the idea that somehow the black families are broken because black fathers aren't present. All the research has shown that actually black fathers tend to be more present, believe it or not, because that's not the norm that we hear, that more present in the lives of their children than our white parents, white fathers. So that needs to be rebutted. And then thirdly, the idea about black cities struggling, I think, is just so troubling because we see it in places like Chicago and Detroit and Atlanta and places that are dealing with issues of crime and poverty and homelessness and housing issues. And we say, well, why can't these black cities get it together? And Republicans use this too, and they say, well, these blue cities are all the problems, these blue black democratic cities. And the truth is, a big part of the problem is that we start with the Reagan administration when they start to defund the cities in the 1980s and start to take that funding out to the suburbs.
That's right.
We go back even further to the Eisenhower-Kennedy administration, where the federal government was supporting the building of the interstate highway system, which encouraged white people to move out to the suburbs where black people could not live because of redlining. And then we move into the present situation where we have this policy called state preemption, where states can actually use their powers, and they often do. These red states use their powers to block local legislation from cities like Atlanta, Detroit, Philadelphia. They're trying to do something to help their local black constituents. The only time they try to do something, the state can come back and overrule them. Mississippi, where they're trying to get clean water for water pipes fixed for the residents in Jackson, Mississippi. But the state won't allow them to raise money to do that. That's the evil cynicism of that. The state, the white Republican rural-dominated states are preventing the black cities from doing what they need to do to help their own people.
I have an addendum to that when we come forward with Keith Boykin.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
The thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it hurts to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. Only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer's suggested price. However, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. Excludes 8-count packs.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Keith Boykin, author of the new book, Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Won't Go Away. My time is going away more swiftly than I'd like in this first hour. Just want to add an addendum, Keith. You were talking about these myths of black inferiority. One of your examples was the ways in which they say, look at all these problems these black cities, these democratic cities are having. Not that you need my help, but these cities ain't as black as they used to be with gentrification in L.A. and everywhere else. So that argument that these black cities, I'm like, oh, hold up. When's the last time you looked again at how not so black these cities are these days thanks to gentrification? Again, I digress on that particular issue. Here's the fifth of these racial arguments and what they have in common, these toxic racial arguments have in common. And the fifth, in case you've just tuned in, the first of these five, they try to erase black history. They prioritize white victimhood. They deny black oppression. They promote myths of black inferiority. And finally, they rebrand racism as something else entirely. Keith Morgan?
Yeah, this fifth one is all about gaslighting, which is a term that I've only heard in the past 5 or 6 years before. I don't ever remember hearing it before that time. But it comes into play around the time when Donald Trump becomes president. And a lot of it is that they're trying to convince us that what we're seeing isn't really happening. And so when we talk about racism, they say, oh, you're just playing the race card. That's one of the terms they use. Or they try to excuse their own racism by saying, oh, well, it was a joke when you say some of my friends are black. But they're literally doing this with Donald Trump. Yeah. They're pulling out old pictures of him with Rosa Parks and Don King from an Ellis Island ceremony from the 1990s. Where he just happened to be getting an award, and they were too. And they're pulling him out and saying, well, he can't be racist because he took a picture with Rosa Parks and Don King, or he can't be racist. Now they're creating AI-generated images of Donald Trump with black people. And that's supposed to prove that he's not racist. I mean, this idea that somehow that you can't be racist because you happen to have an association, we happen to know one black person, you're not guilty by association. It's just absolutely phenomenally stupid. Then you have this other one called the idea that you can't be racist because you don't have a racist bone in your body, which is something that goes back to the 1960s that they were saying, and they're still saying that about Donald Trump today. Or that they say you don't see color. Well, I don't see color. We're all the same. That it never occurred to me. That was one of my favorite moments for this. I talk about this in the book is when Tommy Lahren, the conservative Fox News commentator, appears on Trevor Noah's show, and she says to him, I don't see color. Just kind of fatuously throws it out there as if she's making some sort of declaration that she's so proud of herself for saying. And Trevor Noah comes back and says, oh, what do you do with a traffic light then? It's like, of course you see color. Why are you even trying to gaslight us and pretending that you don't? We all know this is not true. Why are you even lying to us about this? And the whole title of the book actually comes from Tommy Lahren, too, strangely enough, because she's the one who asked the question, why does everything have to be about race? She's not the only one. There's a lot of white people who ask that question. And there's a lot of white people who have actually criticized me on Twitter. Every time I say something calling out racism, they criticize me on Twitter and say, and this guy wrote a book called Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? How dare he? But they don't even understand the irony of it. I'm quoting their idiotic question, why does everything have to be about race, after they spent hundreds of years of creating a society about race, and then black people talk about that same society, and they say, "Well, why are you talking about race?" It's a parody of them. The idea that we shouldn't be talking about race because somehow they think that it's going to make us forget the fact that America is a racist society.
Our remaining moments with Keith Boykin when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom. If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Go ahead, feel your engine. Admire that perfectly installed exhaust. Your vehicle's moving along this freeway like it was made from fresh installs and a whole lot of love. With eBay Motors, you get over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
I've only got 3 minutes left. 3 minutes left in this conversation with Keith Borkin. His book is called "Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Won't Go Away." I mentioned earlier, Keith, or certainly referenced earlier, that I had a guest on this program yesterday in this same hour, a guy named Coleman Hughes, who has a book out called "The End of Race Politics," which I think is not happening, but it's called "The End of Race Politics." And he and I had a spirited debate yesterday, spirited argument about reverse racism, reverse discrimination. I know exactly. That's what it was. It was one of those old man conversations, no question about it. In the 2 minutes I have left, can you dismantle right quick, because you talk about it in your book, this notion that affirmative action is reverse discrimination?
Yeah, I mean, reverse racism, reverse discrimination are old terms that Republicans have been using since the 1970s. It's also part of this idea that somehow they perceive themselves as being the victims. And it's portrayed in this whole notion of colorblindness that people like Clarence Thomas, even, and others are perpetuating today. They're saying that anytime you do something to help black people, and that's actually the equivalent of what white people did to us by hurting black people. And we can all see through that and know that's not true. And they're trying to attach that to the Constitution and the Reconstruction era, saying that was never the intention to help black people, was to make everything colorblind. Clearly, that was not the case. When they passed the Reconstruction Act, when they passed the Freedmen's Bureau, when they passed the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery, the 14th Amendment giving citizenship, and the 15th Amendment guaranteeing the right to vote, it was about protecting black people. Black people were the ones who were discriminated against, not white people. And yet you have, even in 1883, just 20 years after the Civil War, when the U.S. Supreme Court strikes down the Civil Rights Act of 1875 because they say that it would make black people the special favorite of the laws. That's how old this argument is. They've been making this argument since even after the Civil War. They've been saying that anything that helps black people would somehow hurt white people and make black people the special favorite of the laws. It's a radical reconstruction of the history of the reality of American racism.
You know, we had a powerful and spirited dialogue about all those issues, color blindness and reverse racism. If you missed that conversation yesterday and you want to just be entertained, check out the podcast, my dialogue with Coleman Hughes yesterday, talking about his book, The End of Race Politics. But that ain't the point today. The point today is Keith Borkin's new book, and it's called "Why Does Everything Have to Be About Race? 25 Arguments That Won't Go Away." Why does everything have to be about race? 25 arguments that won't go away. The author is Keith Borkin. Keith, good to have you on, my friend. All the best to you. Enjoy your Lenny Kravitz moment, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Tavis. I'm going to go watch him now.
All right. All the best to you. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa